Hi, welcome to this episode of our podcast. I'm Mary Abazia, and with me is Tom Spitali and Sean Wellham. And
Hi.
of course, we're all with you from Impact Planning Group. And we're passionate about marketing. And whenever we look around, we're always trying to figure it out. Well, that's what this is about. We're using a marketing lens for real cases out there. And the one that's come across our radar, of course, is Disney. They've done a lot of different things, and we tried to peel back where is their strategy and what's working and not working, why, how, those good questions. So Sean's going to take the lead and kind of set the stage for us.
Thanks, Mary. So Disney Plus is obviously a streaming service, and I've become more aware of it recently because I have, like a lot of people, Netflix. I have an Amazon Prime account. I recently got Apple TV, started off as a free subscription based on a new bit of tech. I bought a phone or something, and I kept it because of Ted Lasso. You've ever watched that? It's a great show. And then the family is saying, "Oh, this is on Disney. We need to get Disney." And I'm like, "Hang on, something's got to give because we can't have every streaming service in the world here." But the more I looked at Disney's content and their growth, they're clearly going to be dominating this market pretty soon. They're going to overtake Netflix, I would assume, in the next year or so.
Wow, that's a big, I'm going to put that down as a quote.
There's a prediction. There you go. And it was because of this, I was thinking, okay, so streaming is relatively new to most of us. And yet Disney, who are not new to most of us, a very long and storied business, have done so well. And I wanted to address it in two questions. And I thought that the way, well, we talked about this, and there's the big question of why. Why did Disney create Disney Plus when the alternative was just licensing their vast back catalog? And once they'd made the decision, there's also a how question. How did they then go about executing this strategy that is very probably going to dominate or at least take market leadership in the streaming? So the first question I'm going to throw out to you guys is, why would Disney think Disney Plus was a good idea given their alternatives?
I'm gonna steal your answer, Sean. That we do discuss these things beforehand, and you were talking about the data, the ability and the opportunity to gather data. I want to ask you a question. So if you think about the Tracy triangle, the Tracy Wiersma triangle, the discipline of market leaders, which says all companies are predominantly either product innovators, operationally excellent, or customer intimate types of companies. Which one is Disney?
I have to say customer intimate. I mean, they're not bad on the other two, but they just seem to be true to that end user. And some of the innovations that they've done are all in the spirit of making sure that they're really taking care of their customers. And their customers, they have, I mean, their segmentation, I'd love to get behind it and really see, because they seem to be working that well. So that's my answer. Sean?
No, I totally agree. I think I always have a problem with those triangles, from the Porter's generic strategies to the Weismer triangle. I always think it's not only one, right? You excel at one, but Disney are fantastic operationally as well. That's one thing that you'll see in terms of
are. Yeah, they truly are. Yeah.
But I think the core, if you want to see that, what do they operate fantastically on? It's understanding that customer, that very specific niche that they have. And also, I guess strategically, the courage to grow that niche, which is part of, we'll get on to the how, but they've not just stuck with the mouse. They've grown in different directions, which is also a strength. But yeah, the customer intimacy, Tom, to answer your question.
Totally agree. By the way, calling it the Wiersma triangle, Fred Wiersma thanks you, because it's always the Tracy triangle, and I think they did it together, but nobody ever mentions poor Fred. So
I always like to stick up for the underdog, Tom. You know that.
Yes.
I want to. Can I expand on that a little bit more, Tom?
Sure.
So your answer, the question you had about that is it seems like, the old Disney that we all know and love had our characters, and it just seemed like almost like they looked at it and said, wait a minute, we aren't leveraging any of those gold mines that we have. And so what I think has been fascinating, because they are customer focused and they really have understood what the customer's love for them is that they've been able to expand on their franchises and, put all the princesses together. We love each princess, but what happened when they go together, and what if I can get it in a t-shirt now? What if I can get it on a video game? So I feel like, that was what we're seeing as evidence of some of those things.
Well, I mean, and Sean asked the question, maybe why didn't they just license the content? Why did they decide to stream? And the reason I asked about customer intimacy is because what the capital of a customer intimate provider is customer knowledge and customer data, understanding at a deep level the needs and preferences of individual customers and being able to customize offers. Look, I mean, I live here in Tampa. I'm an hour away on a good day, 2 hours away on most days because of traffic. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But there are, in my experience, Disney people and non-Disney people. Okay. And it's not a 50-50 thing. I mean, it's probably, 10 to 20% of the world is Disney people. Okay. Meaning they absolutely are passionate about Disney and spending time there in the experience. And so the opportunity to gather more data on who those people are and understand them better, their viewing habits, and being able to customize offers and just continue to broaden the scope of that relationship with those Disney people, I think is the reason behind streaming in Disney Plus.
I think also it's that, if they'd have chosen to just, they got a huge back catalog of quality content, and they could have monetized that. And really, in terms of Porter's five forces, that supplier power, they could have squeezed most of the rent out of streaming in the short term. It's one of the reasons I think the markets didn't particularly like Disney's strategy, because they were giving up billions of risk-free cash. But I think they just recognized that if they had data, or rather they wouldn't want Netflix to have the data or somebody else, because that's so valuable in terms of viewing habits and what works and what doesn't. And that feeds the creation of these characters, which of course they monetize in many ways, through the theme parks and resorts, through merchandising, through the actual product and derivatives. So they really have to hang on to that data for long-term viability. And while they're taking a short-term financial hit, it's going to pay off in the long term, because ultimately content will remain king, and you don't get great content if you're not tapped into your users, to your customers. And that's a lesson for all of us, right? Not just a massive media company. If you don't tap into your customers, your content, whatever that might be, is never going to be as good as it could.
Yep.
So the question after that is how, right? Like, do we move on to that now? Like, how do they take this vision of broadening content and going direct to consumer? How did they do it?
I think they hired the right people, number one, and number two.
Yeah.
I mean, they just, what is interesting is Tom and I actually had done a bunch of sessions in that in California, and it was interesting that some of the buildings that we were working in and near were all of their school, and they kind of have this under everything else. They're teaching people the Disney way, and they're well respected as being leaders and teachers of best practices. And so I wonder if some of that was where they attracted top talent that is known for executing in these new spaces. Because if you're a company doing A, and then you decide, oh, look over there's a really good market opportunity for us, and you go to B, a lot of times you crash and burn because you just don't have that experience. But it seems as though they've actually, as you've described, done it incredibly well. And I've got to believe that they knew that it was a good place, but then they invested in the right people.
Yeah, it's a culture of execution, starting with the theme parks, right? What I've always really admired about the theme park experience is they're one of the few companies these days that has mastered the concept of front stage, backstage. Like, if you have a beef with anything that's happening in your employment experience with Disney, it is not visible to any of the customers at the theme parks. It's back, that is all considered backstage. And they've, and I know that sounds strange to bring up in this wide-ranging discussion of how they did it, but I think that if they have been able, and they probably have, to bring that culture of execution over to the other, business units and divisions, and I imagine that they probably have. It's probably gotten more difficult as the organization has grown. I mean, I think that's just a big thing. I mean, it comes with hiring right people, but having, everybody having this total mindset of executing and following through, and experimentation and piloting. And
Yeah, I think there's also, dare I say, like in most ventures, there's an element of luck and timing involved. Because I believe they bought Pixar back in 2006, and I think the driver for that wasn't so much with a view to the streaming future, which maybe wouldn't have been that clear at the time, but it was more to do with one of their core strengths is their animation studio. That's what most of us grew up understanding Disney to be. And Pixar was this next generation of animation, and they just wanted to be part of that. So they bought Pixar. They bought Marvel 2009. And again, probably mainly because of the rich character base. There's all these identified characters within the Marvel universe that lend themselves to the sorts of things that Disney produce. Again, broadening that base of content. And I think that then led them to realize that, hey, we've got a pretty strong franchise here of different characters, because a lot of their stuff is character based. Even when they bring new animations out, we fall in love with the latest new princess or character or whatever it happens to be. And of course, then they acquired Star Wars or Lucasfilm, and all of a sudden they've got this monster catalog of most of the current big names in terms of box office success recently. But I think a lot of it was, now we've got all this content and we see Netflix and we're making money licensing it to them. They see the next. So I think it just says that all strategy has to be agile, right? We'd be foolish to look back and think in 2006 they had this integrated step-by-step path to dominance in streaming. Rather, as they addressed different strategic issues, they kept agile and kept looking at the environment, and then said, this is how this is what we're shooting for now with Disney Plus.
Sean, you talked a lot about innovation, new characters, new channels. And when it comes to the now famous Wierzima triangle that Sean named, it's funny that customer intimacy and product innovation actually seem to feed each other. It seems that most of the operationally excellent companies are really just totally focused on driving out cost and being, great operators. But Disney, being a very customer intimate organization and always having this mindset of gathering data, I think that helps them to understand new trends, streaming and just different distribution channels, and probably helps feed some of the creativity around the new characters that they're creating as well. So it seems like that those two can feed each other pretty well.
I think also, my other point about these triangle models is they always shift over time, because what's coming in the streaming world is going to be this era of consolidation, of price or cost cutting and price increasing, of acquisitions and takeovers. It has to happen because you're about 2 billion subscriptions out there. Obviously, many people have multiple subscriptions, so there's not that many subscribers. 2 billion, that isn't growing. And this is soon to become a zero-sum game. And as a consequence, as people compete for the same customers rather than expanding the market, you're going to have price wars, you're going to have casualties of war, you're going to have acquisitions, and it will stabilize. But I'm not sure what the long-term future is. I think we're approaching a really interesting period of consolidation within streaming. I think we're there already. Again, that's my opinion.
Yeah. So Sean, you had made a prediction that that Disney will overtake Netflix. And I'm just curious how, we're discussing that Disney has just this plethora of characters, and they seem to be agile and their base is solid. Then you have Netflix over here. So where is Netflix on the triangle? And if you were Netflix trying to compete with Disney, what could you do? This is a question for both you guys.
Yeah, I think Netflix are in a tough spot. It's a classic. I wrote an article. It's on our website called "The Second Mouse Gets the Cheese." Unless you rename it. Tom is our headline writer, but "The Second Mouse Gets the Cheese" about.
I would not rename that. That's brilliant. I love that.
It's not the pioneer that gets the spoils. It's whoever follows up with it, learning as they go. And I fear that Netflix may have to accept their fate as the pioneers that didn't quite capture all the market. So is their future that they've got to create content? Content's really expensive. Now they've got to outcompete Disney for creating content with Lucasfilm and Pixar. And it's just not going to happen. It's so hard. So they're going to become more niche. I don't know the future. I just think it's going to be very tough for Netflix as a distribution arm as opposed to a content creator. It's whether they can scale up, hence acquisitions and mergers is probably how it's going to play out. I don't see another way.
Sean, when you predict the overtaking, are you including the ESPN?
No, if you include ESPN and Hulu, because they own 60% of Hulu following the Fox acquisition, they're already ahead of Netflix in subscribers. But if you look at Disney Plus versus Netflix, I think they'll overtake next year, 2024.
Wow. Okay.
Take advice from an investment professional before you listen to a word I say, people, by the way. I feel like I should put some sort of warning that I'm not an expert. I just have opinions.
No, and this would be a one, we do war games, and, I would love to see how this war games out, where you create a simulation of different scenarios. And we keep thinking that there's just the two, but you never know. There's a third rogue player that may come in and, disrupt the whole thing with new technology or something. And, the game will be played very different in 5 to 10 years. So
Apple TV it might be Apple TV.
Apple suffer from they churn they almost 100% churn of their customers because of this free, buy an iPhone, get 3 months free. They have a lot of churn. They're getting better with content. The thing is with Apple and with Amazon, they've pretty much got bottomless pockets for creating content if they wish to, right? Netflix don't have that. They're not part of a bigger business. Apple obviously is, Amazon is this massive global retailer, both with aspirations on streaming. Netflix is the OG, the original streaming service, and that's why I think they've kickstarted this market, but they probably don't have the asset base.
So Meta should buy Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, well, what about Tencent or iQIYI, the two big Chinese streaming services? I mean, I know that's probably politically going to be different, but don't forget, we're looking at Western View. Two of the top 5 streaming companies are Chinese based, so there's always that option, right?
They have the resources.
Yeah, we have to wrap this up, but we hope that we've opened your mind in some new ways, and maybe you're gonna subscribe to a few new streaming services or drop a few after thinking
if nothing
about
else,
it.
watch Ted Lasso. If nothing else, watch that show.
Thank you for joining us for this. And anytime, we love getting the comments that you're sending in. So thank you.
Thank you.